just in case. I peep a lot of shit, I prefer to observe. I'm never following the herd.
Youth right there. Tagovailoa trying to make up for it. Fires to the end zone. Touchdown! Alabama wins! Looking for Brooks in the corner. Got it! Touchdown, Alabama!
Me and B-Rob are super close. Lockers right next to each other, so I get to see him. I get to be around him all the time, and then obviously on the field. But B-Rob's someone I've been cool with since I first got here. Someone who's from Tuscaloosa, who has been in the program for a while. And when I first got here, he was someone who was always super cool with me. Someone who was super welcoming when I was just a freshman. That means a lot to me. For him, last year being here as long as he did, he didn't have to, go out of his way to make sure I was good and to look out for me as just a freshman. But he made a priority to do that, and that's always meant a lot for me. Not just in football but in life.
It means everything is so much fun. I have to give those guys a lot of credit because they give me so much energy when I watch them play. Before the game, I swear I always say to myself, I said, your brother's out there with you. Look at Phil, he right there beside you. Look at DJ, he right there beside you. Look at Dallas, he right there beside you. So we straight no matter what, and that kind of gives me a little bit of confidence too.
You're listening to Bama Brigade, the Sports Flash Media Network. Hey-o.
Hey.
Welcome into the December 16th edition of the Bama Brigade on the Sport Flash Media Network. I'm Joe Will, joined by my co-host Tyler Shibish. Clark was supposed to be here, but I'm sure many of you have seen from Twitter that he's struggling with his little, wisdom teeth surgery?
Yeah, he's a little loopy still.
Yeah, so it's been a while, but we're back. Tyler, how you doing?
Good. Yeah, I'm in a whole another city since the last time I did a show with you. I think I did one with Clack when I moved here, and then
I was gonna say, I think the last show I've done was Halloween, so we've all been busy, living our lives. How are you liking? You're in Chicago, right?
Yeah, it's pretty nice actually. I was just I was walking around. It's a little snowy. It's a little
Deep dish
slick,
pizza.
I actually haven't had deep dish since I got here yet. I'm
What?
kind of missing out. I know I had more St. Louis style pizza since I've got here than I had deep dish. But yeah, deep dish and Italian beef are the next two on my list of places I'm going to go to. Because have you seen the show The Bear? Or the show The Bear?
I love that show.
The restaurant that it was based on is here, and I want to go to it. It's called Mr. Beef.
Yeah, I'm jealous. I need to make a trip to Chicago sometime, just for the food alone. I'm kind of a foodie, so. But we'll start this off with some fun stuff that Clark put in here. I wish he was here so I could hear his takes. What is the best Christmas movie that you've seen this Christmas season, or just, in your opinion, the best Christmas movie?
Okay, I'm glad you added that caveat because I've seen one Christmas movie. I live on my own.
Yeah, I was literally
roommates.
thinking today, I was like, I got some work to do.
Yeah, so I live by myself now, no roommates or anything. So I don't really watch Christmas movies. Saw one with my girlfriend called, I think it was Christmas Catch. It was one of those cheesy Hallmark movies. And it was about a cop during Christmas. My favorite Christmas movie though, I don't know. I I'm not a big fan of a lot of the big classic ones, honestly. I think they're a little overplayed, which is gonna get a lot of hate, like Elf, for example.
Yep.
Come back to me. What's your favorite? You have a favorite? I don't.
My favorite is the Santa Claus movies. I'm kind of like you. I don't dislike Elf, but it's very overplayed, and it's kind of creepy how some people have kind of made it their personality in a way. Some people are really obsessed with it, and then also Polar Express is really overrated. I like Home Alone, but Home Alone's kind of overplayed too.
I think that's got to be my answer. Honestly, I know it is overplayed, but that's probably my favorite. That or A Christmas Story is always good.
Yeah, I would say my top three classics would be Santa Claus, Home Alone, and Christmas Story. And obviously the Santa Claus is multiple movies, and so is Home Alone. But and then another great little thing Clark put on here is how overrated is All I Want for Christmas Is You by Mariah Carey.
I kind of like it. I can't even lie. I do. I'm a sucker for All I Want for Christmas Is You.
Me too, honestly. Like, my parents hate it. Like, they literally hate it. For me, the first Christmas song I play, like, during Christmas season, which starts after Thanksgiving, by the way, is All I Want for Christmas by You. It just, like, every time I hear this song, I can hear it 1,000 times, and it's going to, like, make me, like, happy and, like, cheerful.
Yeah. I like that. And then also, it's been stuck in my head since I saw a stupid Twitter video of it. And it's not in my head because it's good, but Camila Cabello singing "I'll Be Home for Christmas," but instead of saying Christmas, she says "Please, boys,
home for Christmas."
Yeah, that video's been stuck in my head. I gotta go back and change my answer too. I did actually see one other Christmas movie this year. I saw Spirited in theaters. It's the Ryan Reynolds, Will Ferrell one that came out.
How is that?
I wasn't aware, so I didn't know anything about it going in. I was just like, I was visiting my girlfriend's family for Thanksgiving, and they were like, "We got to go see this movie." I was there for one day, so I was like, "Sure." And I wasn't aware going into it. It's a musical, but it was. I mean, some of the songs were actually pretty catchy. I think there was too many songs, like to the point where it was literally just us four in the theater. So we had the whole theater to ourselves. We were just like talking and like making jokes and stuff the whole time. But it got to the point where we were like groaning every time another song came on to the end. We're like,
oh no,
God, why is it not over yet? But it was decent.
All right. Enough of this Christmas talk. Let's talk about some sports. You know, the reason people are actually tuned in right now. There's nobody tuned in.
This isn't a Christmas show?
It sort of is, but right now there's nobody tuned in. It's fine. We're fine.
Yeah.
I was going to start off with some Bama basketball, but about an hour and a half, 2 hours before we were planning on going live, we got the news, the much anticipated news that Bryce Young and Will Anderson would be playing the Sugar Bowl. I will say myself, I'm a bit surprised that they're playing. Mm-hmm. I'm obviously a fan of them playing, but at the same time, mentally, I was preparing myself for getting to see, you know, Jalen Milroe, Ty Simpson. Kind of excited to see those guys play, and I'm sure, you know, they'll get to play. Maybe Bryce plays a quarter or a half, or shoot, maybe he plays the whole game. Right. But what was your reaction kind of when you saw this news? I know a lot of people are happy about it.
Well, yeah, no, I'm happy. Like, I'm never going to be, despite how outspoken I've been about not getting mad at players for opting out of bowl games, I'm never going to want a player to opt out, right? Like, is it smart for their future? Probably. But am I going to say, like, oh, they're stupid for playing? Absolutely not. Like, that's really cool, and it's great for the team. And, like, when you said, I'll go on record and say I was wrong. You said that, oh, they're team guys, I could see them playing. And I'm like, there's just no chance. So, like, I mean, I was wrong. I underestimated how much they care about the team. And I think that's a great sign from a leadership. Like, sometimes this year I've been like, maybe Will and Bryce Young, you know, they're nice guys. Maybe they're a little too nice. Like, but this is one of the ultimate ways to lead by example, right? You're two guaranteed top 3 picks in the draft. And you're like, no, I'm going to play my last game with my team. And especially after Bryce was like crying during the Iron Bowl, I thought for sure he was going to opt out.
Yeah, and I'll play devil's advocate a little bit. I did think that they were going to play in this game potentially because they were, you know, team guys, guys of high integrity. But also I did say that I made the semi-bowl prediction that I wouldn't be completely surprised if Bryce came back for another year. I think he's going to go pro.
Oh, he has to.
Right now, I mean, both these guys are top 3 picks. I think Bryce is going to benefit a lot this year too because the top 2 quarterbacks presumably are him and CJ Stroud. Mm-hmm. And barring any huge playoff game against Georgia, I think Bryce is kind of cemented that number 1 spot. I mean, you'll have people going back and forth about size and all that. And
well, I don't know if you saw the rumors too, but there were some rumors that like they came out right now, right? And so because they came out so early, I don't think they're like draft smokescreens. They came out that like apparently a lot of NFL execs aren't as sold on CJ Stroud as they want you, like as people would want you to believe. And like again, everything is a smokescreen. You can't trust anything anyone says about the draft until a player is like on a team. But I feel like it's too early to be like mind gaming teams like that. So
yeah, and I feel like last year the quarterback class wasn't great. This year we were all expecting, me myself included, I was expecting Will Levis to take that next step and have a great year. I was expecting Stroud to be great. I mean, Stroud was a Heisman finalist, so it sounds kind of silly like sitting here being like, oh, he didn't have a great year. But in the games that I watched Ohio State play, I wasn't all that impressed with him. He's very inconsistent. And then I thought Grayson McCall from Coastal Carolina, who's currently in the transfer portal, I thought he would have a great year. Like, I was expecting a lot more from this quarterback class, and it's just been kind of down the last couple of years, which has been odd because we're so used to like this big, huge conversation. I mean, I'll even take it a step further. I feel like the last maybe 2 or 3 years, the class has been kind of weak.
Yeah. Well, I mean, last year there was one quarterback taken in the first round. This year, I'm predicting there's probably still going to be 4. Just some of them are going to be later. I think Anthony Richardson is such a good prospect physically that he's going to get taken in the first round, a la Josh Allen. And then I think Levis has a big arm, so he'll probably be a first-round guy still. And then obviously Stroud and Young are the 2 best. But I don't know. I've been saying it. I've been watch out for the Minnesota Vikings with that late-round pick, maybe picking a developmental quarterback like an Anthony Richardson if he falls that far. But anyway, that's another.
So as a Vikings fan, if they were going to take Anthony Richardson, you'd want it to be like in the what round? You said later round.
So we don't have a second-round pick this year.
I think that you're correct. I think that both Levis and Richardson provide like a specific skill set. You know, they're big, huge guys with big arms, and even though they were inconsistent this season, much like Stroud, I think there's a lot of things when you turn on the tape, a lot of traits that they both possess that are likable. And both guys this year for me, like I went back and forth. You know, when Florida beat Utah, I was like, Anthony Richardson, he's the truth. And then you turn on some of their games and you're like, this guy, man, this dude just head scratching plays. And then with Levis, frustrating as well because he's your prototypical quarterback. You know, he's kind of built like Josh Allen. Like he's just big dude with a rocket of an arm. But I don't know if it was because of, I mean, at times it was his fault, but maybe they didn't have enough weapons or play calling in Kentucky.
Well, I think about that at Florida too. Like you think this is Napier's first year, right? Or was it his second?
I think it was his second year, but I don't
remember. But so like Billy Napier comes in, changes it, and then all of a sudden the offense doesn't look good, and that's right when Kyle Trask left, right? So it's like how much of it was Kyle Trask being good, how much of it is like that Kyle Trask would have been bad in this offense as well. It's really hard to tell.
Well, I expected a lot from both teams, Kentucky and Florida this year, and I think the fact that they had let down years obviously had a pretty good impact on both Levis and Richardson as quarterbacks developing. Kind of just went down a little draft tangent there.
Oh, yeah, and real quick, actually, one last part of the tangent. You asked where I'd be comfortable taking like an Anthony Richardson or a developmental quarterback. Like I said, the Vikings don't have a first-round pick or a second-round pick, this year. They traded it for TJ Hawkinson. And, I would be completely fine using like the 28th pick or whatever we're going to end up with on a developmental quarterback because I think that Kirk has been good this year. But if you can get the key to being good is having a young quarterback on like a rookie contract, right? So like, I think that it's worth it. And then, if you get like a star quarterback that's 22 years old, you're set for the future. So that's just
kind of turning things back towards the actual game. We talked about Anderson and Young playing in the Sugar Bowl. Right now, I'm looking at the spread. It's Alabama -5.5. I would have to assume that jumps up a lot just based on
that was pretty Bryce Young announcement.
There's 2 players playing, so if you're a betting man, which I don't know, I've been known to do it in the past, not as much now. and you got that -5.5, you're probably pretty happy.
Right.
We've had some time, post missing the playoffs to kind of sit back and think about this team this season. Obviously, it wasn't, what we thought it would be, but I'm still pretty excited for this game. There was a point in time where I thought that I would maybe be going to the game. I'm not going to now, but regardless, I'll be watching. And kind of interesting, we play at noon, so I know people are kind of complaining about that, but I think it's kind of fun. We're not used to playing these early games. We're used to playing 2 o'clock or 3:30 around there. So what do you think about the Sugar Bowl? I mean, it's one of the marquee bowl games, or used
It's
to
just
be.
being the number 5 team. Like, I understand, right? K-State was the Big 10 or Big 12 championship team, right? But like, K-State seems like such an underwhelming team to play.
Yeah, like a slap in the face.
Right. It's nothing against K-State. They're a good team. They beat TCU, but it's like Alabama's right outside the top 4. I feel like we should be playing another playoff caliber team, or like almost playoff caliber, like USC or someone like that, right? Would have been a cool matchup. But I know that they have their whole thing with the Rose Bowl and everything, right? So, but yeah, it's K-State. I have a hard time getting excited to play K-State because that's just like another, like, they're on the same tier as like Ole Miss and all of these like mid-tier SEC teams in my mind. So I don't know. Maybe I'm completely wrong, but like,
no, I agree with you. You kind of look at it and you're like, Alabama in the Sugar Bowl, and then you're like, Kansas State. Like, it's not really like a flat, I guess, a quote unquote like flashy opponent.
yeah.
Like, it's not like we're playing Oklahoma or Penn State or Oregon or
Oklahoma this year might be a
well, yeah,
game,
no,
to be honest.
not this year, but just kind of in general. Kansas State they beat TCU.
Yeah.
They ended their season beating TCU, so obviously we shouldn't really overlook them. But I kind of touched on it earlier about Jalen Milroe and wanting to see him play this game. And something that I was kind of excited because I assumed Bryce wouldn't play. What are some things that you're excited to see in this game, or players maybe? I mean, coaching-wise too is kind of something I haven't brought up, but
they're going to be coaching for their career.
I don't know the details. Apparently, contract-wise, O'Brien and Golding's contracts are set to expire in the new year, January 1st, I'm assuming. Like I said, don't know anything about contracts, just kind of seen it on Twitter through various sources. I believe that Golding will be back. O'Brien's rumored to be most likely on his way back to Foxborough to help out the Patriots. So
I'm okay with that. If Golding made 1 or 2 different adjustments throughout the year, I think people would have been talking about him as like an average or like a slightly good. Like, literally, Golding's 2 mistakes were like not adjusting to Jalen Hyatt and not being ready for, or never spying like a mobile quarterback, which are 2 like egregious mistakes. Don't get me wrong, but it's like he calls a good defense 90% of the time, and then the 10% sticks out so much that it's like, this is egregious. I don't know.
This is gonna sound so bad because I've been one of the people that's hated Pete Golding since he's been here, but I want to like him, but he just makes it so hard to like him. And you're talking about 90% of the time, and then I'm sitting here and my blood's boiling just rethinking about, like, I don't know. It's not like you're getting out schemed. I don't know what the thought process is to just being like, oh, this player's beating us on a go route.
Let's do one-on-one all game.
Yeah, and I don't get it. I think some of it, I'll play devil's advocate. I'll come to Pete Golding's defense. I've said devil's advocate twice already. So if you had an over-under bet on that, it's probably hitting. I think some of it is personnel, though.
Yeah.
Because I liked our corners this year. For the most part, they're up and down. But one thing that Bama really needs is some safeties that are good.
Caleb Downs, man. I'm excited for Caleb Downs.
And we'll talk about recruiting here shortly. But to me, just two players that really just frustrated me this whole entire year were DeMarco Helms and Jordan Battle.
You're going to say DeMarco. Oh, I was going to say Malachi Moore and Jordan Battle, but Malachi Moore, I guess, didn't even really play enough to.
Yeah, and I mean, we've talked about that a lot on this show, too. Just the complete disappearance of Malachi Moore, who was everybody was hyping him up. I mean, he had a great freshman year, and then he's fallen off.
I think his injury might have been worse than.
Yeah, I think so, too. But, I mean, DeMarco Helms and Jordan Battle, two experienced guys, too. I think our players this year that were experienced didn't make the jump that I thought they would make as leaders and just as players overall. And then also the younger guys didn't develop at the rate that we thought they would. And that was overall, I think, the main issue with Alabama.
Well, and one thing, too, is like, I don't know if it's like the chicken or the egg, but Terry and Arnold being moved to corner. I don't know if that's because we didn't have any good corners and he like filled in until Eli Ricks like got up to speed, or if they moved him because he's not as good of a safety. But I kind of would like to see them move him back to safety. I know he was recruited as a safety, right? So I kind of would like to see that again, because like as a corner, he's too small to match up with like the big physical guys. But as like a help defender, I feel like he'd be much better at that, right? Like.
Yeah,
I don't know. Like that was the Terry and Arnold played admirably for. Was he a redshirt freshman or was he just a sophomore? I don't know if he played in enough games last year.
I think he sophomore.
Either way, a young player stepping in, but like so many players just kind of abused the fact that he was a little bit smaller. Like what's his name? A&M's star receiver, the freshman, just kind of bodied him all game. Anyway. It'll come back to me eventually, and I'll be sad that I didn't remember.
Yeah, and I think too with our DBs, Kyrie Jackson had so many opportunities last year down the stretch. Had a lot of opportunities this year. Just a big letdown for him as well. I mean, he's in the transfer portal, I think, right now.
Yeah, he's visiting Kentucky.
Yeah, he's visiting Kentucky. But like I've said it since I've been red in the face about Pete Golding, Bill O'Brien, blah, 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 blah. But, like, it really just boils down to player development. And a lot of that is on the coaches, but also, you know, the players, when you're going into the season and you make these recruiting classes and you're building your roster, you're expecting these players to develop and, you know, you're kind of seeing, like, a timeline, like, okay, you know, this is where Kyrie Jackson's at now. This is where, you know, Jordan Battle's at. This is where we're expecting these guys to be at, you know, a couple games into the season or by the end of the season, and they just weren't at that point.
One other thing, too, is like looking at where players are at right now. You also have to look at, like, especially towards later in the season, like look ahead to how they're going to impact you in the future, right? So, like, for example, I'm thinking of like the receivers. So, you know, Trayshawn Holden got almost no playing time the last couple of games because Isaiah Bond and Shaz Preston and Kendrick Law all got the playing time over him. And it's like one of those things where, yeah, Holden might have been like a little bit better than them at the time, right? But they're going to end up better, so you got to play them, right? And it's the same with like defenders. And I kind of wanted to ask you, how do you feel about, was it Holman Wiggins, the wide receiver coach? So from our receivers from the 2021 and the 2020 class, only one remains.
Ja'Cory Brooks, right?
Ja'Cory Brooks, yeah.
I like Ja'Cory Brooks a lot.
I like Ja'Cory Brooks a lot. I think Ja'Cory Brooks is good. But do you think that falls on the coordinator at all, that almost 2 years of receiver recruits, none of them developed well enough to get any playing time besides Ja'Cory Brooks?
I think it does, but I'm really just kind of being a public defender of the coaching staff. I think we are so spoiled.
Yeah, I mean,
so
like misses happen
spoiled.
In recruiting. Misses happen, and like you look at like Christian Leary, for example, right? Like big recruit, didn't get any playing time. He ended up at UCF. Yeah, it's his home school, but like if he was big recruit, you know, big potential, like he you'd expect he could go to a better school than UCF. I don't know. That's kind of how I look at it. And like same with JoJo Earl. Yep. But JoJo Earl, I feel kind of bad for because I will say to the credit, JoJo Earl was pretty good. He just got hurt. Like he was playing well, and then he got hurt, and then Kobe Prentice like took his place.
The receiver position is interesting because, like I just said, we're so used to Devontae Smith, Jalen Waddle, Henry Ruggs, Jerry Jeudy, Devontae Smith, Jamison Williams, like John Mechie. Just this embarrassment of riches at receivers. And when you went into a game, you knew who your starting receivers were going to be. Mm-hmm. I mean, you were going to get a couple snaps from these other guys, but this year was just like, oh, we've got Burton. Oh, we've got Holden. Oh, we've got Prentice. Oh, we've got Law. Then Isaiah Bond starts playing. And so going into the games, you really didn't know. Like, Bryce never had a dependable target. I mean, you could argue his two most dependable targets. One of them was his running back, Jahmyr Gibbs, who got hurt, and that kind of made things tough. And then Cam Latu as a
slow as molasses.
Yeah, but as a tight end who, I mean, God bless him, but he kind of had some tough drops and plays down the stretch too.
I was so hoping Amari Neeblack.
This year I'm kind of looking ahead to next year. And you're saying to yourself, okay, we don't really know quarterback. We know running back is Jace McClellan. He'll be the running back, which I'm a big fan of. But receivers, Jermaine Burton said he's coming back, or he's expected to. I don't know if the official announcement's been made.
I don't think he came out and said, but I think it's like the expectation is that he's going to.
I really liked his game towards the end. It took him a long time to develop. There's that theme of development again. But I think towards the end of the year, he was pretty dependable or remotely dependable for Alabama's receiver standards. And then I think it's Ja'Cory Brooks. And then, the rest is kind of up in the air, like those other guys we talked about, but we saw a lot of playing time from this year. So I just – consistency with the receivers was a recurring theme this year as well.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, I'm looking off to the side because I'm looking at like recruits coming in because I know. Yeah, okay, Malik Benson was the one I was thinking of. He was JUCO transfer, and he actually just got bumped to a 5-star today on one of the services. And I saw like a quote that he like is one of the best JUCO prospects of all time. So hopefully that's some.
We can pivot into like recruiting and the transfer portal, which is kind of a hot topic. Haven't really seen like receiver wise. Haven't really seen much about our receivers. I'm just kind of assuming we have a decent class.
So I'm looking right now. We have Jordan Hale. He's the number 7 receiver. He's out of Longview, Texas.
I've heard good things about him.
And and then the next other. So there's a couple 4-stars, Jaron Hamilton, Cole Adams. But like I said, Malik Benson is probably the big one. He's a JUCO transfer, and he's like a 5-star JUCO recruit. He's like the top JUCO target in the entire country. So I think Malik Benson's probably going to be the biggest, at least immediate impact for that. And then we also do have a kicker because sadly, the Will Reichard dream, I think – he's coming back one more year, right? He's coming back for next year. And then,
I think so, yeah.
So, but we do have Justin Jefferson coming in. That's pretty cool.
He's coming back to college. We could
unfortunately a different Justin Jefferson, but he is a linebacker recruit, and he's also a JUCO player, and he apparently is going to be probably the fastest linebacker that Alabama's maybe ever had. Like he's just insanely fast.
But so he's not Shane Lee level fast.
He's a little bit faster than Shane Lee. But yeah, so then other than that, big recruits, right? Caleb Downs.
Yeah, and I think it's fascinating how the process works now because it's not just, black and white where it's strictly recruiting. A lot of these decisions that are made recruiting-wise are dependent on the transfer portal.
Right.
If a quarterback is thinking about going to, I don't know, pick a school, USC or something, and then sees that, or UCLA, let's say a quarterback's top high school prospect, might go to UCLA, but then sees that maybe DJ Ukulele might be going to trying to get closer to home and might be going to UCLA. Well, then that's going to affect his decision. So it's kind of like a domino effect in that sense. And there's so many names in the portal right now. We're talking about receiver too. Alabama has all these guys on their team now, but they could also go out and get, I don't know, pick a name.
Yeah.
Receiver.
Ooh,
Dominic Lovett from Missouri. I mean, the process now is so complex, and so much of it is a waiting game. And early signing day is, what is it? It's next Wednesday. It's the 21st.
Yep.
Early signing day, but now a lot of players just go ahead and they sign on that day. So it's kind of become the norm to sign then.
Well, yeah, we have 6 players I saw that are actually graduated from high school early, officially graduated, and are flying to Tuscaloosa to be a part of the practice for the bowl game. None of them can play. And they were all some of our lower ranked recruits. The only really notable one, I don't want to say really notable, right? Because I have no idea how good they're going to be. The only really notable one was Eli Holstein, the quarterback, was graduated early. Interestingly enough, too, Alabama has 2 quarterback commits for next year. Eli Holstein and then Dylan Longerin also. They're both 4 stars. They're the number 9 and 11 ranked quarterbacks in the draft. Not draft. You know what I mean? Recruiting class.
Oh, they must be pretty good.
Yeah, I know, right? Dang.
Taking a step back, early signing day, like I said, it's 5 days away. Bama currently sits at number 1 after succeeding that spot to A&M last year, which didn't work out too well for A&M. But we have 25 total commits, 3 5-star players. But they also have a chance to add, plenty of other great talent. That's the flip side of, I guess, playing just in a New Year's Six bowl game. Like I'm saying, just because by Bama standards, that's considered terrible. But you have a lot more time to recruit, and a lot of these teams that you're recruiting against, like Georgia, who's going to be one of the teams that's, you're going head to head with for a lot of the players in the South, and Michigan even, and Ohio State. I won't say TCU because we don't usually compete with TCU for players, but you're getting the jump on these guys, and we saw it this week already when Bama went and signed Keon Keeley, 6'6", 240-pound defensive end.
Originally committed somewhere else, right? Like, was it Notre Dame?
Yeah, I think so. I think it was Notre Dame. He reminds me a lot of Will Anderson size-wise, but I think he'll be a big contributor for the team next year as a freshman. And then also, this has kind of caught some fire the last couple of days, is that they're currently in the process of trying to flip 6'7", 330-pound Iowa commit Caden Proctor. Mm-hmm. Iowa has that reputation with Leonard Baum and Wirfs, and they have a reputation, and Bama does too, of just being a school that really develops offensive linemen. But I think this guy in particular, Caden Proctor, is a player that, you got to be throwing parties for your team if you're able to get him recruiting wise. Right. Kind of just has that typical, Iowa lineman build, and obviously. You never know what's going to happen with these guys, but you look a couple years down the road and you're sitting there looking at this guy being one of the top draft prospects, offensive tackle-wise. I'm getting way ahead of myself, but a lot of positive information out there about this flip getting done. And so we'll kind of see the next couple of days leading into next week too, if that's something that they're able to pull off.
Obviously, it's not the same situation, but I'm just a little worried because the last time I got really excited for an offensive lineman commitment was the two twins, right? The Brockermeyers. Yeah, I couldn't think of their name. But granted, there was a lot of talk, even at the time, that they didn't look as good as they were ranked in high school, just because their dad and their brother played at and they got kind of a bump because of that. Mm-hmm. But one of them is in the transfer portal, and I wouldn't be surprised if the other joins as well. I don't know if it's James or Tommy right now.
I think Tommy Brockermeyer. TCU is kind of looking to steal a couple of our guys. I think Tommy Brockermeyer, geez Louise, and JoJo Earl are kind of two guys that are rumored or crystal ball to be heading to TCU. But yeah, that's kind of funny you brought that up because I was thinking about that the other day. I was so excited when we had J.C. Latham, the Brockermeyers. Like people were saying it was going to be the greatest offensive line recruiting class ever, and then
Latham's been good.
Yeah, Latham's been good. He'll be a star, but Brockermeyers and there were some other guys too. I think who was it? I can't remember the class as a whole, but I remember thinking, like, sitting there looking at my chops, like, this is going to be a great class. So, you never really know how that stuff's going to work out. But with kind of also, too, with the Caden Proctor thing that I thought was interesting is 2023 running back commit Richard Young. He's been lobbying hard for Caden Proctor on social media. And I actually did some detective work, and I saw that some tweets that people were saying about Proctor, come home, or Proctor come to Alabama. Caden Proctor liked 3 or 4 of those tweets.
Ooh. Tweet watch, officially tweet watch season.
Detective work done by me.
Terrence Ferguson was the other one. He was the number 2 ranked IOL in the country.
That was one of, but we're talking a lot about the portal and recruiting. I know I personally have a lot of players that I would just be gushing if we were able to get. But give me some players you'd love to see Alabama go out and get in the portal, and then players that they would realistically look at because, last year they didn't make any splashy moves, really.
Yeah, I think my
not as Gibbs. Gibbs was a steal.
Yeah, I think my favorite is probably Grayson McCall. I was kind of surprised he transferred. I know we don't really need a quarterback, but he could be the perfect bridge quarterback for giving Ty Simpson, Jalen Milroe, Eli Holstein, and Dylan Longren all a year to figure out who's going to be the next guy. As far as, let me find a list because I actually don't know exactly who's still in the portal.
We've talked about this. I mean, I've talked about Grayson McCall probably for the last 2 years. I love Grayson McCall. Drake May would have been nice, but he squashed those rumors saying he was going to stay in North Carolina, which makes sense. He's from there. But Grayson McCall right now, he's visiting Auburn. I think he visited Auburn today. Probably would not be all that surprised if he ends up going to Auburn, which sucks because it's the guy that you like and you're going to get to see him play your team once a year and be in your own conference.
One that I don't know. It's weird because he had a lot of character issues, and I don't know if that's like a Nick Saban thing, but he's one that we were recruiting pretty heavily in class. But Denver Harris from Texas A&M, It's just like, how much do you balance the fact that he apparently skipped some meetings this year and was caught like smoking weed before a game, right? So like, how much do you think Nick Saban cares about that? But like I said, that's a guy that they were recruiting really heavily, and I could see them trying to make another push for because he has all the talent in the world. So I think Denver Harris would be a great addition. And then I'm looking at all the other ones.
Yeah, I mean, I've got a list pulled up right here of some guys that I know and some guys I don't. Jaheim Bell was on that list, but I think he committed to
Florida State.
Yeah, he committed to Florida State, so that was the guy people were linking to us. Ra Thomas is on there, but I think he might go to Ole Miss or Georgia. Receiver, I do like Dominique Lovett. Missouri's interesting because they keep getting a lot of like local talent. Mm-hmm. So last year they had Dominic Lovett, and then Luther Burden was, I think, the number 1 recruit in the class. Last year they got him. Lovett this year, 800 yards, 3 touchdowns. So not a lot of touchdowns, but I mean, when you're playing with, God, what was your quarterback's name? I don't even remember what the quarterback's name was this year. 800 yards is pretty impressive. He is from like the St. Louis area, I'm pretty sure. So
shout out to 314.
Yeah, so I don't know if you're able to kind of pluck that guy away, but I would love to see him.
One other thing I do like too is potentially you're gonna think I'm crazy for this, but potentially taking a flyer on DJ Uiagalelei. I don't know if he would want to go to a school where he'd have to compete for the starting job, but I think the bigger thing with him is that his brother was a big Alabama, a big fan of Alabama, and he's a 5-star pass rusher, and I feel that he could be swayed together. They could kind of come as a package deal.
I thought so originally that was the case, but I did see that last week or two, he's narrowed down his recruiting. Mateo's his brother to USC, Oregon, and then I can't think of the third team. So I think Bama's out for him. I'd be willing to bet he's probably a guy that's going to want to stay close to home. And I think DJ, taking that lead going from California to Clemson and then having it not really work out in his favor, he's going to want to stay close to home too. So I can see both of them going to Oregon maybe. Or, I mean, it kind of just depends too with like Bo Nix. Because if Bo Nix decides he's going to enter the draft, which I kind of think he'll do, then if you're DJ, I mean, you could go in there, but you're competing with what's that kid's name? Tyler Thompson. I mean, so I think they both stay on the West Coast, but
So
I know people were talking about that.
So real quick, we had a question. How much do you think seeing 3 Bama quarterbacks in the NFL has on possible recruits? I think that one thing, like historically before.
Not to be 4.
Yeah, I was going to say before Jalen Hurts, right? Well, I mean, if you count Jalen Hurts, it is 4. Wait, no, I'm stupid. It's 3. I don't know what I'm talking about. But before Jalen Hurts, right, Bama was not a quarterback school. And I think getting Jalen Hurts was instrumental in that kind of showed like, hey, look, you can be a successful quarterback at Alabama. Like you had Mac Jones get Heisman votes. You had Tua get Heisman votes. You had Bryce Young win the Heisman for the first time ever. So like there was this whole stigma before that like Alabama, you're such a system player, you're not going to get any recognition.
I kind of think, I mean, Hurts had his success. I think Tua was kind of the catalyst.
Well, yeah. I just think Hurts, like, because Hurts was the first time that we had a quarterback get like any type of hype at all, even though he was kind of
because I mean we're used to Greg McElroy, AJ McCarron,
right? Who are like
John Parker Wilson.
They're serviceable, but if you're a top recruit, you don't want to be a John Parker Wilson.
Yeah, well, I mean the game changed completely too, like college football, sport as a whole. So you had to have more dynamic offenses. I mean teams still kind of have those guys, but it's way different now. You want a quarterback that's got mobility, and I mean, not really knock anything against those guys because they won a lot of games for Alabama. But that is kind of crazy to think about to be 4 starting quarterbacks.
Well, and also like nowadays, especially, I think that quarterbacks kind of like are incentivized to go to a school like Alabama, right? Like, and even to the point where you saw Mac Jones and Tua go the same year, and they both had success. And I think that's why we have both Holstein and Longren coming in together, because you prove like even if one of them wins the job, the other one still has a chance to be successful here.
Iron sharpens iron, yeah.
Yeah, and you look at like the teams over the past couple of years, right? The only 2 schools I can think of that almost every year now have had a quarterback in the draft being like a first-round pick or close to a first-round pick are Ohio State and Alabama, right? Like the last couple of starters at each school were like big deals. To the point where it's almost, if you're a starter at those schools, you're almost guaranteed to be a high pick, right? Like you had Haskins into Justin Fields into now CJ Stroud, and then you had Hurts into Tua, into Mac Jones, into Bryce Young.
I think it's tougher now though with the portal because you have that freedom of if you're not the starter, things don't necessarily work out. It's going to be kind of tougher to keep, the loser of whoever wins that battle between Holstein and whatever was the other guy in Longren. But that's a great point though, that like in the past it's worked out.
But yeah, I think like with Mac Jones, like he proved, and especially like whoever takes over after Bryce, right? Bryce was a 2-year starter. They're probably only going to be a 1-year starter unless it's like one of the freshmen win the job. I mean, I guess Ty Simpson would be a 2-year guy too, but like, for example, if Jalen Milroe wins the job and plays really well, he only needs to go like play for 1 year. And then Simpson could play for 1 year and then go to the draft. And then like one of the next guys would play for. So like, I think that having like seeing the success in like the limited time, and that's kind of always been Bama's thing, right? Like with running backs, for example, if you're a starter at a running back for Alabama, you have to be the best running back in the country if you're going to be a starter for more than 1 year. And even then, 1 year is all you need to be like a first or second round pick out of Alabama.
Yeah, that's true.
Like Brian Robinson was he second or third?
Round pick.
Yeah.
Second.
I think he was second.
Yeah.
Right? And
I
like
think
he was
we
a
had
second
two
round pick.
second-round picks.
Yeah, and he was a second round pick being the full-time starter for 1 year. And he didn't even have like crazy numbers or anything. He was just dependable. So
Yeah, I mean, he was there all 4 years too.
right.
See. Oh, he was the third round.
Okay.
They took Phil Mathis in the second.
Gotcha.
But yeah, no, your point still stands. Clack's not here, but he would be punching us right now if we weren't kind of slowly moving towards basketball. So you want to transition to some basketball?
Transition threes, which you love.
Yes. Yes.
No, so
favorite.
basketball is number 4 in the country. They're playing Gonzaga tomorrow. Kind of a grueling schedule of a couple of games where they played the number 1 team in the country in Houston. They ended up winning on the road, which is pretty crazy. They out Houston, right? Their offense wasn't good, but they played incredible defense. And I'll go out and say this is the best defensive basketball team I've seen Alabama be since I've watched.
I
They're
was
just
thinking the same
suffocating.
thing.
And
I don't think our offense has kind of fully blossomed into its best form. But I mean, we're coming off a 91-88 win over Memphis Tigers.
it
Like
was
you said,
really not as close as that, but with 10 seconds to go, Memphis stole the ball, hit a 3, stole the ball again, hit a layup to bring it within 3. So I mean, I guess it was that close, but literally, it was really a 8 or 9 point win before the last.
yeah, I still have an issue with the 3-point shooting, but I'm not going to sit here and kind of focus on the negative. Like you said, I love our defense.
Mm-hmm.
I've never seen an Alabama team play this good defensively.
Well, and rebounding too. We're just out
rebounding.
Everyone.
Noah Clowney is one of my favorite players, fan favorite right now
Yeah.
as well. And then Brandon Miller didn't have the best game against Houston. I think he had 2 points or something, or
Yeah, and they were off of free throws.
yeah, but he's averaging 18.5 points a game, one of the best players in the country, freshman. So, I mean, I know he's definitely going to be gone after this year unless he injures himself or something.
Him, Noah Clowney, and maybe one of Jaden Bradley or I always forget his name, number 3.
Marks? No.
No. I was just thinking of the freshmen that are probably going to be gone after this year.
What do you think though about this completely? I mean, minus Quinterly, who's been here for 18 years. What do you think this completely revamped starting roster or starting lineup, and the fact that a lot of these guys are freshmen?
Yeah, so I've been saying this for a couple of years, right? It's Nate Oates was getting a lot of judgment. Sometimes the team fell flat, and that's a fair thing to judge. But especially in basketball, you can't really judge a coach until year 4, right? When they have their team, this is all his guys, right?
Yeah, you had to get all those Avery
Look,
Johnson guys out of there.
Yeah, there's nobody on the team that he doesn't want on the team now, right? So, and you can kind of see it come to fruition. He got the 4 years to recruit players that fit his system, right? Even the Charles Bediako, for example, has been super impactful. He doesn't score a lot, but he's been an incredible defender, incredible rebounder. Obviously, getting Brandon Miller is huge. He's the best true freshman in the country. And just being able to build this roster. But yeah, besides a couple of transfers, all the people that are actually doing stuff are young players. They're freshmen or sophomores, right?
Yeah, and then I think the one guy that's a bit more experienced in Mark Sears is a guy that's, I think he's a pretty great leader, and I think he's dependable, and so it kind of cancels out the Quinterly thing for me, where Quinterly, when he shoots, it's frustrating.
Yeah.
I hate this being this guy who's constantly I despise Quinterly, I despise it. Anytime I turn on a Bama game, which, I mean, I haven't done too much this year because I just haven't, because when football season ends, that's when I start pivoting to basketball. but he just
Right.
turns the ball over so much.
Yeah. I mean,
And
I
when he
agree.
shoots it, the shots, you're like, oh, that's not a bad shot. And then it like grazes the rim. And you're like, what are we doing?
I agree. I think people are overly defensive of Javon Quinterly too. Like any criticism is met with hard pushback, which I don't get. I mean, I'm not like Quinterly is like worthless, but sometimes I do think like he tries to. He's coming back from injury.
He's a me guy. I just feel like he's a me guy.
I don't think he's a me guy. I think he's a guy that's been a proven like he can get you 30 points, right? Like he's done it before in the biggest
I've never
stages.
seen it.
But I mean, well, last year against Gonzaga, I think he had like a crazy game. But anyway, he's coming back from injury. He's still trying to get right, and he's forcing shots that maybe he would make when he's 100%. But he doesn't understand, like, you know, he's not 100% yet. And I get it, like you got to take those shots, but it does look frustrating when it like doesn't end up working. The one guy that annoyed me like much more last year, he hasn't got as much playing time this year. It's Noah Gurley. He's been better this year, I will say, but he was my most frustrating player to watch last year. One of them, because like he took so many threes, and I'm like, you're 7 feet tall, just go and back someone down.
Yeah, the corner. Just to kind of go back to Quinterly thing too. I'm not the biggest fan of him, but there's this voice in my head that's saying, if Bama continues, if Bama continues to, go down this path like this year where they're going to be one of the better teams in college basketball, and you get Quinterly going, he's going to be that guy in the tournament that's going to potentially, push you into the Elite Eight, the Final Four.
Yeah.
Like, I just know it's going to happen, and I'll get dragged for it because like he's been here for so long. Like if you were to sit and watch this guy play like a game of pickup basketball, your jaw would be like on the ground because he has all the fancy moves, and we just kind of haven't seen it consistently come together this year. But there's that voice in the back of my head that's like, I wouldn't talk trash about Quinterly because he's gonna make me eat my words this year.
Well, and like we need other players like that to step up, right? Like Brandon Miller's the big scorer on the team, but like you said against Houston, the game plan for Houston was like just keep Miller from scoring, right? Like whatever you do, let other people beat you. And Rylan Griffin was the other one I was thinking of, the other freshman. And
I like him.
We also have Dom Welch, who isn't even playing yet because he's hurt. So we have a stacked roster from top to bottom. I think like all these players are legitimately good contributors for the first time and probably ever. There's no one that like touches the floor this year where I'm like, ugh, why? Like, and there's always been some of those every previous years. Like
Alex Reese.
Yeah, and where it's just like, okay, they might make a cool shot every now and then, but like overall are a net negative. I don't think they have anything like that this year, and I think that they've bought into the system. They're playing well. They're playing great defense, and it'll be interesting. And,
I think. Go ahead.
Oh, you.
I think there's less pressure too on Quinterly this year because, like you said, anytime there's not a player that comes in where I'm like, oh gosh, this player's in the game. Where in the past, like you said, that's been a pretty reoccurring theme. But yeah, like I'm sitting out there, I'm like, oh, Brandon Miller's coming in, or oh no, Clowney's doing well. Like, this team's fun to watch. Yeah. So if Quinterly can kind of just keep, being a team guy and dishing the ball out, getting assists, and then occasionally taking some shots, I think that bodes well for this team for him to just kind of keep a low profile. And then there's got to be those games where they might need him and he'll deliver regardless of what I say.
Yeah. And then like the one last thing I'll say too about the team roster construction is this year, I don't think we've ever seen it. There's like 5 or 6 guys I'm comfortable like handling the ball with, right?
Yeah.
In previous years, it was like Quinterly.
You're not like, oh God, please.
Yeah, it was like Quinterly and then like Davison. And then like everyone else, I'm like, please don't touch the ball until we're at the half court. But now it's like, it's Jaden Bradley, it's Rylan Griffin, it's Brandon Miller, obviously Mark Sears, Javon Quinterly. He's hurt now, but Namari Burnett, like all of these people, I'm like, I'm fine with them taking the ball down the court. Like, and so I think that's one big thing. It really hasn't helped. Like we still struggle with turnovers at times, but most teams do, to be honest. I think that that's a little over. Like everyone thinks their team struggles with turnovers. It's kind of like offensive lines in football. Every team thinks they have a bottom 5 offensive line until you like watch, other teams play. But I don't know. I think that they have high hopes, and I'm ready to be crushed. Also, did you know that Mizzou basketball has an assistant whose name is Dickie Nutt? That's a very good name.
All right, and with that, I think we'll wrap up the show on that note. Sorry. Thank you guys for whoever tuned in to us tonight. We're supposed to have Clack, obviously. He's battling some demons.
He's fighting for his life. He wants to go to the moon.
Yeah, God, please. But we'll be back probably before the new year to talk about the bowl games. We didn't really have the time to talk about it tonight because we had a pretty loaded docket. But thank you, everybody, for tuning in. And